let's come back home now. The TRC Commission is under the leadership of former Justice Sisi Khampepe is facing some headwinds as we head into the year 2026. Former President Jacob Zuma has now launched a formal application for the recusal of Khampepe if he is to feature at that commission. This follows similar pushback from former President Thabo Mbeki and 4 other cabinet ministers. Zoleka Qodashe joining me in studio tonight to explain what all of this is about. What is clear, though, Zoleka, is that the latest around this is former President Jacob Zuma addressing that particular commission formally in terms of his discomfort with the chairperson who is going to be heading up this commission, former Constitutional Court Justice Sisi Khampepe. This is not the first time, though, that former President Jacob Zuma has sought to address this. Take us back a few, let's say last year, a month ago. Yeah.
Well, good evening, Claude, and good evening to the viewers. Well, there was communication that was sent to the Commission over the chairpersonship of retired Justice Sisi Khampepe of the inquiry, that's the TRC inquiry. And so the arguments now that he has furnished the Commission with is that essentially the Justice Khampepe was on the constitutional bench when he was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment for, you'll remember, his defiance for appearing before the Commission of Inquiry that was investigating those allegations of state capture. And so he says that the particular tone and language that was used by the Justice in her judgment that was penned by her, you'll remember that there was a majority judgment and then dissenting judgments as well, in relation to sending him and slapping him with that 15-month imprisonment for contempt of court, was penned by Justice Khampepe. And he says that he argues that the tone that's been used by Justice Khampepe essentially demonstrates that she has a deep-seated dislike for the former head of state, and that essentially this would render her biased, or there's a reasonable apprehension of bias on her part. But you'll remember that there's also a test for the reasonable apprehension of bias in terms of the law, and that is an objective test, that the reasonable person must also be under the impression that the chairperson in this instance would be biased towards another party or biased against the former president in this instance.
There is an interesting element to the statement that was put out by the Jacob Zuma Foundation today, Zoleka, and I just want to read that part because it in a way encapsulates part of what the claim is by former President Jacob Zuma against the chairpersonship of Justice Khampepe of this commission. And they basically lump all of these as conflict of interest, right? There's a particular line I want to go straight into, and it is point number 2. I quote now, Justice Khampepe is alleged to have engaged in serious misconduct in connection with the recent recusal application concerning Advocate Semenya SC, the chief evidence leader of the commission. It is alleged that she provided undisclosed legal advice to Advocate Semenya Senior Counsel, including guidance on issues to address and submissions to advance through his legal representative, Advocate Vas Soni Senior Counsel. This was, and this is the kicker now, this was in order to defeat the recusal application over which she was to preside. That's quite serious.
Okay, so what the allegation is, you'll remember that there were recusal applications before the commission in relation to Advocate Semenya Senior Counsel, right? And so, as you rightfully mentioned, the allegation that's been launched, or rather that's been advanced by the former president, is that Justice Khampepe assisted Advocate Semenya in relation to, and giving advice, right? And also in relation to some of the key witnesses that would be appearing before the Commission of Inquiry. And so those are the serious misconduct allegations that the former president alleges. But you remember that when there is a misconduct allegation against someone, and it's been now found that when there's an allegation of gross misconduct against someone that has been a judge, then there are official processes that must ensue, and that is through the Judicial Service Commission, right? Which has found that even when a presiding judge, or rather a judge or a justice, has vacated or has retired, they can still be subjected to those processes before the JSC. And so that is what the former president is alleging, and also saying that essentially this is on the part of Justice Khampepe, is misconduct of a gross nature. And so those are the allegations that he's making. But of course, he would need to approach a body that is tasked with investigating such claims of gross misconduct against the retired justice.
Zoleka Qodashe, thank you very much indeed. And just a reminder that we are going to be joined by the spokesperson of this particular Commission of Inquiry that is investigating apartheid-era crimes, and its chairperson, Justice Khampepe, is the person that is being challenged here. We're going to hear their side of the story. How do they respond to these claims? And do we know for certain that former President Jacob Zuma is indeed going to be called before that commission? Because it's one thing to call for the justice to recuse herself, but what if the former president is not going to be called before the commission? So is this some kind of preemptive strike? All of those hopefully are going to be answered a little later.